Hey guys, so welcome to this great lesson. It is a social emotional learning lesson. And today we're going to learn about two things. We're going to learn about impulse and how impulse is something that makes us want to do something. We're going to learn about how to take a step back and decide whether our actions are a good decision or a bad decision. So we're going to learn about that today, and I'm going to read a story to you guys and share with you some personal memories I have because I tend to be a very impulsive person. But thankfully, I've learned strategies that have helped me, and I hope that these strategies can help all of you as well. So here I'm going to give you a definition of impulse. So today we will learn about impulses and we'll practice a strategy for controlling our impulses. So first we're going to learn about what impulses are. So an impulse is a sudden wish or a sudden desire that makes someone want to do something. Now, an impulse can make you want to do a good thing, like help a friend, but can also make us call out in class or make other decisions that can hurt others or hurt ourselves. So that's why I used a big explosion, because an impulse to me feels like boom, an explosion that makes me want to do something. And sometimes we need to control those impulses. And that's what we're going to learn about today. So we know we're all human. So we all have impulses. We all make impulsive decisions. That's when we act on our impulses. And I have to admit, I made a bunch, and I make a bunch still. So I'm going to give you guys an example from when I was in 5th grade. And I call this the French fry story. So when I was in 5th grade, and yes, that's me, we went on a field trip to the IMAX theater. So we saw a great movie and everything was going well, and then we got treated to lunch at Chili's, and Chili's is kind of like Applebee's, and my friend ordered French fries, and I thought it'd be funny if I took the French fry and threw it at her. But I didn't have very good aim, and I ended up hitting a random woman that was walking by in the mall, just at the exact moment that my 5th grade teacher turned around. So you can imagine she was not very pleased with me, and neither was the woman in the mall. I made an impulsive choice, I threw the French fry, and I got a consequence. I had to call my dad from the principal's office, and I had never been called to the principal's office before, and I was very nervous. So that is my impulsive story from 5th grade. So as you learn from that story, I can be pretty impulsive. But I've learned some strategies that help me to stop and think about what I'm going to do before I do it. So we're going to read a story today, or I'm going to read a story to you today. And it talks about a boy who's in 3rd grade. He's very funny. He's smart. He's also very impulsive. That means he makes choices based on his impulses a lot. So his teacher teaches him strategies, and his parents teach him strategies to help him to be less impulsive. And you're going to see as the book goes on, you can make a prediction, he's going to get a lot better at controlling his impulses, and so will we. So if we learn that an impulse is something that suddenly gives you a wish or a desire to do something, then what does impulsive mean? Because I've said impulsive, but we haven't defined it yet. So I want you actually to go into your notebook and write your own definition of what you think that impulsive means, which is why I'm going to ask you to pause now to give yourself some time to do that, all right? Whenever you see this symbol, it means that your video should be paused and you should be writing down in your reader's notebook or whatever notebook you've chosen to use, and you should be writing what I've just told you to write. So in this case, you should be writing, what do you think impulsive means? Great, I can't wait to hear your definitions. So an impulse is something that makes us want to do something. Impulsive. Impulsive means we're going to do that thing without thinking or planning. And here's an equation, just like in math, where you have an impulse is what the thing that gives you a desire to do something. Then we act without thinking first. Then it becomes impulsive. So for example, when in my French fry story, when I was in there, my impulse was, I really, really suddenly want to throw this French fry at my friend. Then instead of thinking I'm in a mall where there's a lot of people and I could hit someone and we shouldn't be throwing food, instead I just threw it. So I was being impulsive because I didn't think first. What were you thinking? A story written by Brian Smith and illustrated by Lisa M. Griffin. Hi, my name's Brayden, and I'm in the third grade. Just so you know, I'm probably the funniest kid in my school. Seriously, I have made some kids cry and almost wet their pants because they were laughing so hard. Anyway, this year school started the same way it does every year. The teacher explains the rules, we practice the rules, then we practice them some more. Don't teachers realize third graders know how to follow the rules? Well, on Friday, I realized why we practice the rules. My teacher began class by saying, "Good morning, boys and girls. Today we are going to..." And that's when it happened. I shouted out, "Talk about how awesome I am?" Seems like he was being impulsive here. The class giggled. My teacher, Mrs. Vickerman, said, "Whoa, Brayden, we have rules to follow in class. Is interrupting me when I'm talking to the class following the rules?" "No, I guess it isn't being respectful," I answered. So I can tell here that Brayden knows he's not being respectful, but his impulse was very strong and he needs to learn how to control that. Right. Remember the first day of school, we talked about what those rules look like in class. And we said one way to show respect is to raise your hand if you have something to say and calmly wait for the teacher to call on you. This is one way that we control our impulses. Control our what? I'm sorry, Mrs. Vickerman, but that sounds like grown up talk. Mrs. Vickerman smiled and said, "They are big words, but what they mean is that sometimes our bodies are telling us to do things, and we have to decide whether or not we should do them." Later on, Mrs. Vickerman pulled me aside. She asked, "When you shouted out saying we were going to talk about how awesome you are, what were you thinking?" "Well, I thought it would be really funny." "Right, but did that make the situation better or worse?" I sat there for a second and then sighed and said, "Worse." Mrs. Vickerman explained that there are times to be funny and times to be serious at school. She asked me, "When is it a good time to be funny at school?" "I don't know, maybe lunch, recess, and free time?" "Right." Mrs. Vickerman gave me a card with 4 easy steps to follow before saying or doing something. Well, I handed you that guys that, or you printed it out, so you should have in front of you the self-control strategy sheet that has the same 4 steps that Brayden is about to learn. And you can look at this while we read the rest of the book, so please take that out. In our class, number 1, stop what you're doing. Number 2, think about what you're going to say or do. Number 3, decide if it will make the situation better or worse. And number 4, choose the behavior that makes the situation better. This didn't seem too hard. I told Mrs. Vickerman I was sorry and I would think about doing things from now on. You guys think it's that easy? Do you guys predict that he's going to just be able to control all of his impulses now because he has these rules? I'm not sure. But I wanted to stop and just look at these rules again. So if you look at the paper in front of you, you'll see the first rule. It says stop what you're doing. So do it after me. Stop what you're doing. when you have an impulse or you want to do something like call out, stop what you're doing. Do it with me. Stop what you're doing. The second one is, think about what you're going to say or do. So do it with me. Think about what you're going to say or do. Then decide if it will make the situation better or worse. Is it going to make the situation better or worse? Decide. That's the third step. Now the fourth step, and I hope you're looking on with me, the fourth step is choose the behavior that makes a situation better. Choose the behavior that makes a situation better. Choose it. Pick it. Choose it. Just like that. Do it with me. Choose the behavior that makes a situation better. Now let's do all four of them together with the symbols that I taught you. Those are very important. It's very important for you to remember the symbols that go with each one. So stop what you're doing. Your turn. Okay, then it says think about what you're going to say or do. So you can do that too. Think. This is the thinking symbol. Think about what you're going to say or do. Go ahead. Step 3. Decide if it will make the situation better or worse. Decide if it will make the situation better or worse. Your turn. All right, the last one. Choose the behavior that will make the situation better. Choose the behavior that will make the situation better. Go ahead. Awesome. Now let's get back to the book and see what happens next. Later that day in PE, we were playing a new dodgeball game. The only rules were you could not hit kids in the face, and you could not go on the other team's side. My team was ahead, and things were going great. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Amanda sneak over to our side and hit one of our players with a ball. Like a cheetah, I sprinted over to Amanda and threw a ball right at her face. Well, it seems like Brayden made a mistake because he doesn't seem to be following the rules that he just agreed to follow. Now remember the first rule, stop what you're doing. What should he have done when he realized that Amanda was cheating? I want you to take out your reader's notebook, or if you have other people from the class in person, I want you to turn and talk to the person next to you. So either one. And if you choose to write, then I want you to write down number 1, which you have the steps in front of you, and I want you to write, what should Brayden have done? What should he have stopped doing? Then 2, think about what you're going to say or do. If you were Brayden, what would you think when you saw her cheating, and what would you think that you should do? And then number 3, decide if it will make the situation better or worse. Will throwing the ball at Amanda's face make the situation better or worse? And 4, choose the behavior that makes the situation better. So what behavior could he have chosen that would have made the situation better? 5th graders, so I want you guys to be thinking about those 4 steps that we just learned, and they should be on the paper, which I hope is in front of you, so that you can follow along. So I want you to turn and talk with a partner, or if you don't have a partner to turn and talk with, I want you to write it down in your reader's notebook. All right, thank you. We'll move on with the story after that. But please hit pause. You need to hit pause now because otherwise the video will keep going. Just as the ball was about to hit her, Coach called out, "Brayden, get over here right now." I saw Amanda on the floor crying and knew this was not going to end well. Then I heard the same words again. "What were you thinking?" I explained how I was mad Amanda cheated, and that's why I hit her with the ball. Coach did not look happy and told me I needed to control my impulses. Coach asked if hitting Amanda with the ball made the situation better or worse. "Worse," I whispered. He pulled out the tips card from Mrs. Vickerman and asked if I followed any of the steps. I realized I didn't even follow step 1. Stop what you're doing. Controlling my impulses might be harder than I thought. That day when I got home, my parents already knew about what happened at school. Mom and Dad said we would be practicing controlling our impulses at home, and they had a copy of the card Mrs. Vickerman gave me. Oh, great, I sighed. With all that happened at school, I was surprised to see Mom was making cupcakes for me. As they were cooling off on the counter, I went in like a hungry bear. I ate 12 cupcakes and then had a huge tummy ache. Mom came in looking shocked and asked, "What in the world's happened to your brother's birthday cupcakes for his class?" Uh-oh, maybe those weren't for me. Brayden, you know you were supposed to ask permission. And with everything that happened at school today, what were you thinking? I was thinking about how good they would taste. Did eating those cupcakes make the situation better or worse? Well, they did taste good, I mumbled. I'm sure they did, but overall, did that make the situation for you, your brother, and me better or worse? Worse, I said as I lowered my head. We want to make responsible decisions. That means we're not only paying attention to how it affects us, we're paying attention to how it affects everyone around us. So that's why she says, how does this affect me, your brother, and you? We can't only think about how it affects us. So, have you ever done something and it affected maybe one of your siblings or a cousin or a friend in a negative way, in a bad way? What kind of decisions have you made? So you can turn and talk with a partner about a time when you had an impulse that you felt like you couldn't control and you did something bad. For example, maybe breaking your sister's doll because she was being mean to you or something like that. So please turn and talk, and we don't have to be embarrassed because we all do things that we're ashamed of. I threw a french fry at a random person in the mall. So I don't think we need to be embarrassed, but we just need to be honest. And if you don't have anyone next to you, just write it down in your notebook. And make sure you pause here as well because, like I said, the video will keep rolling on otherwise. So make sure you pause. We went over the card Mrs. Vickerman had given me again. On top of that, I had helped Mom make more cupcakes instead of playing my favorite video game. Not a fun night. Why were these 4 steps so hard to follow? A few days later at school, it finally clicked. I was being my usual hilarious self with my friends at lunch. We were having a great time. Then I felt something mushy and wet smack me in the head. A kid from another class threw some jello at me, and the whole table was laughing. How would it make you feel if someone threw jello at you and everyone was laughing at you? How would you follow the 4 steps to make sure you didn't make an impulsive decision? It could be very difficult. So please turn and talk with a partner or write this down in your notebook and you can share it in class tomorrow. So make sure you have your reader's notebook again and you better pause this video. So during that time, I came up with an answer too. So if somebody threw jello at my head in front of everyone and everyone was laughing at me, I would feel hurt and I would feel embarrassed. I'd be pretty upset. I might even be a bit angry. So I said my first step to stop, I would take a deep breath because otherwise I'd probably want to throw it right back at them. Step 2, I'm going to clean the jello off and I'm going to tell a teacher because my other option I thought of was to throw it back at them, and that didn't seem like a safe or smart choice. My third step, which is when I decide if this is going to make it better or worse, I think this will make the situation better because that person will be held responsible for what they did, and I will be safe and I will not get in trouble. And my fourth step, I said, yes, I'm going to choose to tell an adult because that is what's going to make the situation better. What did you guys do? I hope you guys had some good responses as well and shared them with your friends. Back to Brayden. He says, I immediately thought, he just messed with the wrong person. Time to teach him a lesson. I grabbed some of my mashed potatoes and got ready to throw a mashed potato fastball at his head. I reached my arm way back to get full speed, and as my arm was about to go forward, I stopped. Step 1. I got this weird picture in my head of that card. I thought of step 2. I asked myself, is this going to make my situation better or worse? I knew the answer. And though it was hard, I decided to just raise my hand over my head to get the teacher's attention. Step 4. Mrs. Vickerman came over and I explained what happened. She went and talked to the other boy, and he had to go to the principal's office to finish his lunch. Whoa, was I just able to control my impulse? This made me feel so good about myself. Later in class, Mrs. Vickerman pulled me aside. She said, I noticed you had mashed potatoes in your hands when you raised your hand today at lunch. Something tells me you weren't planning to eat those. I smiled and said, yeah, I was going to hit that boy in the head with them, but I decided it would be better to talk to you about it since it's one of the rules of the cafeteria. Wow, he's getting so much better at controlling his impulses. She laughed and said, so what were you thinking? I was thinking I am sick of getting in trouble, and for once I want to make the right choice. That's great, and your good choice did make the situation better this time. You even followed all 4 steps. Yep, I said, maybe I'm becoming an impulse expert. Wow, I see he's getting a lot more confident by using these steps, and I hope that we can too. That night when I got home, my parents asked my brother and me to pick up our toys, and he just left his remote control car, the one he never lets me play with, right in the middle of the floor. I bet he wants to use it. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. I thought, for just a second, this might be a good time to take my brother's remote control car and hide it in my closet. But then again, would an impulse expert do that? I knew what the right thing to do was, so I walked into my brother's room and gave him his remote control car. My brother said, thanks a lot, booger brain. At first I got mad, and then I just laughed. I may be becoming an expert in controlling my impulses, but I'll never be able to control my brother. Guys, so before we move on, I want you to remember, an impulse is something that makes you want to do something. The impulse is the feeling that you get. Being impulsive means you get that feeling, and instead of thinking first, you just act on it. That was what impulsive means. So for this next part, I'm going to give you guys some examples, and we're going to find out what the right decision would be. And you're going to see how we can use our strategy to do that. All right, so you're going to turn to this side of the paper where it's talking about flowers and a classroom. And we're going to read the situation together. And then we're going to fill out all 4 of these together. Then I'm going to show you guys another situation which you're going to work on independently or with a partner, depending on if you're home or if you're at school. And then we'll come back and go over it together. So you're in the classroom and, everybody's very focused and the teacher's talking and you're learning about flowers. So this reminds you of a time when you chased a bee into a cave and got stung. It was really crazy. You were just chasing that bee into the cave and all of a sudden it stung you. So of course you really want to share this with the class and you're super excited and you're feeling very excited to share this with the class, but you know that it's off topic and that will distract the other students. So what are we going to do? Okay, now, so make sure you're looking at your step sheet that has the 4 steps that help us with self-control. So when we're making this decision, we're obviously going to start on step 1, which says stop what you're doing. Alright, so as you can see in your packet, we have this planning page. So please turn to the planning page. I'll give you a couple of seconds to do that. Alright, so you can see in the top left it says stop. All 4 steps are on here, but we're going to start with stop. We're going to bullet some things that we do during the stop section when we're using our self-control strategy. So I'm going to share a couple with you guys and you're going to come up with one of them on your own. And then when you're done, you'll write a sentence inside the stop section of your worksheet and then we will go over that. So here you can see in stop, I said when I stop before I want to do something. So for example, in this situation, when I stop what I'm doing in the classroom, when I want to share something that is off topic, I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to make sure I have a calm body because that's going to prepare me to think, which is the next step. So what's one more thing that you could do during the stop section? Put whatever you think helps you or what you might do to make yourself stop in a situation where you really want to share something. Now I'm going to turn to think. And I'm going to write some things that I might think about during the second step when I think about what I'm going to say or do. I might think, is this story appropriate and on topic? I don't think so. I might also think, will my story help others learn? It might be a funny story, but I'm not sure it's going to help them learn about flowers. It's not really about flowers. And then I want you guys to think of one more thing that might go through your head during this section. The think step, step 2. The next step is 3. Decide if it will make the situation better or worse. So make sure you're turned back to your planning page. Now under decide, what are some things you'll think about when you're deciding if it's better or worse? So I think my story will distract everyone and I think that this will make the situation worse. What else might you think during the decide section? Please write that down. Finally, we're in the choose section. So this is where we choose the behavior that makes the situation better. So I'm going to look into my decide section, think about what I've been thinking about in my think section, and I'm going to choose the behavior. So I'm going to say if I share my story, the class will be distracted. And I can share my story during recess. The story is not an emergency. So what else can you write in the choose section? Write it down, and then we're going to go ahead and write in each of the 4 sections now of our worksheet. And when you're done with that, you're going to come back and we're going to go over the answers. So I want you to first fill out the last section, choose, in your graphic organizer on your planning page. Then I want you to turn again to the page that has the steps on it and the boxes for this first situation. And I want you to write down in each section one sentence that describes what you're going to do at each step. based on what you wrote in the graphic organizer. Alright guys, thank you for coming back. So I want to make sure you're turned right to that sheet that you were just working on. And I want you to look at the answers that you got, and I'm going to share the answers that I got. Now, this is a personal choice, what I'm choosing to make myself calm and make a good decision. So your answers could be different, but I want to share mine with you anyway. So for the first step, stop what you're doing. You can remember emotion for that. Stop what you're doing. I said I will take a deep breath and remember that I need to focus on the topic. For the second step, think about what you're going to say or do. I said I realize what I want to say is off topic and unfocused. That is what I realize in my think section. For step 3, decide if it will make the situation better or worse. I wrote, if I share the story now, it will distract everyone. That will be worse. For number 4, choose the behavior that makes the situation better. I came up with a solution. I said, I will share my story during recess or another time, and then I can remain focused during the lesson and save my story for later. So I hope you guys have similar answers, but you could also have different answers. And I'm really excited that we're going to go over this next situation, and then you're going to do it and bring it into class tomorrow. We're all going to share with each other and go over our answers tomorrow in class. You guys have done such a great job learning about self-control and impulse control. So for your homework, I want you to listen and read along with the next situation, and I want you to fill out the planning page based on the situation. And then I want you to write your final answer on the worksheet that has the steps on it, just like we did for the last situation. But you're going to do this one on your own, and then tomorrow we're going to go over what you wrote. So you're at home playing Roblox, and it's a really good game. You're getting very close to the end, and you're having a lot of fun. And then your brother decides that he's going to take the computer right out of your hands. He's going to grab the laptop and pull it away. So, as you can imagine, you're pretty angry and you feel like yelling at him, but you know that's wrong and it only makes the situation worse. So now I want you, like I said, to complete the homework assignment. And thank you so much for watching this lesson, and I can't wait to see you guys tomorrow and see what you came up with.